Mr. Durst is present, Mr. DeGuerin, and Mr. Henderson is at council table for the people, joined by his colleagues. Let's resume the video recording.
Testimony of Robert Morse is resuming exactly where we left off.
Apprehension about anything else she was doing other than this blowing the situation wide open.
She had had a fight with her landlady, and it was very stressful for her. It had been an ongoing thing, partly about her dogs and partly about her hygiene in the house. And she described conflict over that.
When you found out Susan had been murdered, did you at first, in any way in your mind, connect this friend with his missing wife to her murder originally?
Originally, no.
Was there a point in time when that changed?
Yes.
And can you tell me, how was it that it changed?
It changed when I saw the program on television, and it changed. Honestly, my feeling when I heard that she'd been murdered was that I was just so sorry I hadn't been more exacting with her about circumstances and said, "Damn it, Susie, tell me." But it wasn't until I saw the program that I felt that it all fit together.
Did you know that this individual with the missing wife in New York, did you know what this person's name was?
No.
Later on, based on what Susan had told you, did you yourself come to the conclusion that she was referring to Robert Durst?
I wondered about it. I certainly hadn't heard that name, except a long time ago, I think she talked about Bobby, but nothing that I thought, I didn't make that connection.
You said you referred to a program. Are you referring to the Jinx?
Yeah.
And you said that you watched the program with the Jinx. And is that when you connected up the name Robert Durst to the person she had been talking about?
Yes.
With the missing wife in New York?
Yes.
Now, did you go to Susie's funeral?
No.
Were you, Susie had a network of friends, is that correct?
Yes.
Were you connected, as far as you know, to any of Susie's other friends?
No.
Ma'am, how would you, let me just go this way. When I say the name Linda Oaks, is that someone that you know?
No.
Is that someone you've ever spoken to?
No.
How about Lorraine Newman?
No.
How about Nick Chabin?
No.
How about Susan Harmon?
No.
How about Miriam Barnes?
No.
Have you ever met any of these people?
No.
Now, one moment. Did you see the movie All Good Things?
No.
And did you see the Jinx when it ran? The Jinx ran basically in February, beginning of February 2015 until early March, middle March 2015. Did you watch the Jinx, for lack of a better term, kind of live as it was going on? You understand what I mean by that?
I saw it.
So the Jinx was a 6-part series that aired on HBO. And it would come out on Sunday nights, one part at a time. So you could watch it on the first Sunday night that it aired, or you could watch them during the week, or you could watch them all later. Did you watch the Jinx at the time they were being aired? In other words, or did you look at them later?
I looked at them later.
And do you know, if you can remember, did you watch all 6 episodes of Jinx?
Yes.
I'm going to ask the court to take judicial notice that the last episode of the Jinx, which aired on Sundays, aired on Sunday, it's either March 14th or 15th, the day of Mr. Durst's interview with me in New Orleans. And that therefore, on February 18th, 2015, the witness could not have watched all episodes of the Jinx because they hadn't aired yet. Will the court take judicial notice of that? And the other thing is, the court could take judicial notice. I'll ask for a stipulation. I don't think that's going to be disputed. Are you willing to stipulate?
I'll take John at his word.
Okay.
That's the stipulation.
Thank you. So now, when you interviewed with Detectives Whalen and Romero, as you sit here today, do you have a memory that, you know what, I had not seen all the episodes of Jinx yet, or do you not remember?
I don't think I saw all the episodes when I met with the man who came up to my house.
I want to ask you, your testimony about what Susan told you about this close friend from New York and his missing wife. If I were to ask you, how sure are you that this is something that you remember from Susan versus something you saw on the Jinx, what would you say?
I'm sure.
On a scale of 1 to 100, with 1 being I'm not sure, and 100 being I'm positive I heard it from Susan and not from watching the Jinx, what would your answer be?
99, 100.
Just not maybe cross-examining the witness.
Yes.
Thank you. You may proceed. Thank you. Good afternoon. I'm one of the lawyers that's assisting Mr. Durst. We're one of the other lawyers here. Do you recall Mr. Lewin asking you if you would talk to us?
He said that you might call me.
Do you remember telling Mr. Lewin that you did not want to talk to us?
Yes.
And do you remember Mr. Lewin telling you that if we contacted you to let you know?
Yes.
And do you remember the policeman saying that sometimes investigators that work for defendants appear to be law enforcement when they're really not, and they're going to try to talk to you that way, or could potentially try to talk to you that way? You remember that?
No.
And so recently, did Mr. Lewin say to you, Mr. Chesnoff would like to speak with you?
No.
So in no time?
Are you talking about right now?
No, I'll put it to you this way. I inquired of Mr. Lewin if you would like to speak to us, and would you speak to us? And Mr. Lewin responded that you told him you did not want to speak to the defense lawyers.
That's true.
That's accurate, correct?
She said can we?
That's
Yes.
Thank you.
So we know that you spoke to the police in 2001, correct?
Yes.
And we know that you spoke to the police in 2015, correct?
Yes.
And we know that you spoke to the police in 2016, correct?
Yes.
And we also know that you spoke to Mr. Liu and Mr. Valiant and a DA investigator in 17, correct?
Yes.
So on 4 occasions, over a period of time, several hours at least, you've had an opportunity to speak to the prosecution in this case, correct?
Yes.
But you have refused to speak to the defense, is that not correct?
I haven't refused. I said I would not like to do that. I didn't know that there was a specific request, but yes, I did not want to do that.
Okay, so if I was informed that there was a specific request, that would be inaccurate?
He told me that you might call, and I said I didn't want to talk to you.
So let's assume I had asked. You would have said no, correct?
Quite likely, yes.
So on 4 occasions you spoke to the police, and on no occasions have you ever spoken to anybody representing Mr. Durst, correct?
That's right.
Okay. The interviews with them took many hours, did they not?
For Vegas.
Some hours.
In total.
In total, I'd say 8 hours.
Thank you. So until now, we really haven't had any chance to have any dialogue, correct?
Correct.
In February of 2015, you spoke to Detective Whalen and Detective Romero, is that correct?
Yes.
Did you tell them that Susie had the ability to antagonize people?
No?
Well, you knew her since she was 12 years old. Was she the kind of person, based on your experience, knowing her for 40 years, that did antagonize people, upset people? So your testimony is that Susie was easygoing.
I wouldn't say she was easygoing. I'd say she was anxious to please and very loving.
And neurotic?
Neurotic.
Had all sorts of phobias?
Yes.
Had troubled relationships?
Some.
Okay, mostly with men, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so with her first husband, his name had a strange name. What was it?
Mr. Margulies, her
Okay.
only husband.
Okay, I noticed in the interviews with you, you referred to him as Mr.
She used to call him Mr.
Right now. And then she was involved with a Mr. Kaufman, is that correct?
Yeah.
And she had a very antagonistic relationship with him, did she not?
I didn't hear it as antagonistic, no.
Well, when she confided in you, as you said in your statements, that he may have molested his own children, his own daughter, did you not consider that antagonistic?
On her part, no.
On his part?
I thought that that was terrible, but she wasn't being antagonistic. That wasn't her role.
Did she complain to you that he provided her no financial support and that she was basically the breadwinner?
No.
So Mr. Kaufman supported her, that's your understanding?
No. We simply didn't talk about it.
I want to understand something. You went to school with her when you started around 12 or 13 years old, correct?
Okay.
And did you go all the way through high school with her?
Yes.
So you would have spent about 5 years together.
Yep.
Is that a yes?
Yes.
Okay. And then after the 5 years were up, you went off to school and she went off to school, correct?
Yes.
Did you see each other physically during that time period?
Yes.
You visit her in college, she visited you in college?
Yes, and she was in my wedding during that time. I was married during college.
Okay, then after you finished your education, your formal secondary education, the two of you kind of drew geographically apart. Is that fair?
I went down to visit her when she was in college a couple of times, and she came to visit me. But yeah, I didn't see her as much when she was in New York.
Was she a big storyteller?
I'm sorry.
Was she a big storyteller?
She was a good storyteller.
She was a writer?
Yes.
Correct? She was creative?
Yes.
She had a very vivid imagination, correct?
Yeah, she tended to talk a lot about the truth, too.
I understand, but we're not fighting with each other. I know that she must have told you a few truthful things along the way, but did she have a vivid imagination?
Yes, I guess. That wouldn't be the first way I'd describe her.
Okay. Did she embellish on stories?
Yes.
She was very dramatic, wasn't she?
Yes.
Kind of a drama queen, wasn't she?
I wouldn't say a drama queen. I would just say she was used to living around very dramatic people. And she could be dramatic.
She had a theatrical bent to her, would that be fair?
No.
She spoke flowery words?
No.
Okay, so let me ask you this. Most of the conversations you had, at least in the last 15 to 20 years of her life, were telephonic, correct?
Yes.
So you didn't really spend a lot of time in her personal company, did you?
No.
So on occasion, once a month, you get on the phone with your old girlfriend and talk. Is that right?
Yes, we talked pretty intimately.
Did you ever meet Mr. Durst in all the 40 years that you had contact with, may I finish, please? In all the years that you had contact with Ms. Berman?
No.
In fact, until you researched the question, she never even told you Mr. Durst's name in any of those conversations you had over the 40 years that you know her, did she?
I believe she referred to Bobby, but it was way back, and she never said his last name and never said his name, the late Bobby, Robert Durst.
Now, you said in your interview in February of 2015 that Susan told you she was getting ready to testify in a proceeding. Do you remember saying that?
Yes?
So, she told you she was going to testify in a proceeding, correct?
I believe those words were my words rather than what she directly said.
So you're telling us that, in fact, Susan never told you she was testifying anywhere?
No, I remember when she told me she was going to talk to the authorities.
Yeah, but if you use the word testify, that would be something that you imagined or thought, as opposed to something she said.
If I use the word testify, perhaps there would be a reason that I thought that. But I don't remember her saying that word.
So you repeated the fact that she said she was going to testify at a proceeding in an interview with law enforcement, but in reality, you have no real recollection that she ever said that, correct?
She's going to talk to the authorities.
Okay, but answering my question, you were being interviewed by law enforcement, correct?
Right.
They were talking to you about the homicide of your friend, correct?
Well, she obviously wasn't going to testify there.
No, listen to my question. They were talking to you about the homicide of your friend, correct?
Yes.
It was a very serious conversation, correct?
Yes.
You were looking to help them, correct?
Yeah. Yes.
And you told them something that she never really said, correct?
I told them something that I interpreted that she communicated.
Okay, but so it's clear. She never said she was going to testify in a proceeding. Those words, testify in a proceeding. Correct?
I don't remember those being her exact words.
But even though this was a very...
The implication was that, but she didn't use those exact words that I remember. Remember, this is 15 years ago.
Okay, well, not when you spoke to the police, it wasn't. It was only
I'm
2 years ago.
remembering now.
Okay. But the answer to the question that I asked you is, you told the police something that you attributed to her that she never said, correct?
She did not say those exact words that I remember.
Now, she told you she was in dire straits. Those are words that you used, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And that she was in a crisis, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Let's get it.
Yes.
And you responded by sending her some coffee, correct?
And money.
And food.
Uh-huh.
Okay. Is that a yes?
Yes.
Okay. Now, she said she was going to blow the top off of something. That's what you told us earlier today, correct?
She was going to blow something wide open.
And so if it was going to be blown wide open, that would mean that everybody would know about it, right?
That's
I don't know.
His answer?
Would you ask the question again?
Sure. She told you she was going to blow it open, wide open.
Mm-hmm.
So that means,
Yes.
in your mind, she was telling you that it was going to be something that people would know about, correct?
Yes.
So if you've been her friend at the time for almost 43 years, and it was going to be something that everyone would know about, why didn't you say to her, tell me?
I did.
And she wouldn't.
Right.
Okay. And this is all in the context of her complaining about her financial situation, correct?
Right.
And she was upset with somebody who she thought would give her money, correct?
Yes.
And she had been asking you for money, correct?
Yes.
Did it ever occur to you that perhaps all of this excitement and drama about what she was going to blow sky high may have been something she was just making up in order to get people to give her money?
No.
Well, then why didn't you insist on knowing what her problem was?
I did ask her, I said, Susie, for heaven's sake, what are you talking about? And she said, Robbie, if I told you, I would endanger your life.
She also told you that somebody else was sending her money, correct? At this time when she was asking you for money?
I don't remember that.
Would $25,000 been a significant amount to Susan Berman in November of 2000, considering that she said she was desperate for money?
Yes, it would have been a significant amount, but I think she was deeply in debt.
Did you ever check
No?
whether she was really in debt?
No, she would tell me the truth.
Well, you would hope so, right?
I know so.
Now, you're a therapist, is that right?
That's right.
You're used to getting people to share their problems with you, correct?
Yes.
What's bothering them, correct?
Yes.
And yet you were unable to use your skills as a therapist to get an answer from Ms. Berman as to what this big mystery was?
I wasn't using my skills as a therapist. I was using my skills within the context of our friendship, which was very deep. And I knew that if she gave me that answer, that it would endanger my life, that there was some reason that she really couldn't tell me.
Let's suppose that she knew someone was already a target of suspicion, even if it was untrue. You certainly agree, don't you, that she could spin a story, being the great writer she was, using that suspicion to get money from you?
No. She was embarrassed to ask me for money. She was very deeply embarrassed. And
Did
she
you
would
ever-
not have done that.
In the 4 interviews you gave with the police, did you ever tell them that she was embarrassed to ask you for the money?
Very likely I did.
You sure?
No, I'm not sure.
Again, I want to be clear on this. The term hush money was not a term that she used, was it?
It was a term I used.
She never said to you that Mr. Durst was the person in New York that was going to send her money, did she?
No.
You testified that she would never let anyone who was a stranger into the house. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Does Susie have an alarm on her house?
I don't know.
You would agree that if someone had surreptitiously gotten into her house, she wouldn't have to let them in order for them to shoot her? Agree with that?
That,
I have no idea.
you may.
You might not care now.
Say it again? That,
Answer me?
I'd like the question again, please.
Someone could have been inside of Susan's house without having been let in by her, correct?
It's not likely because she locked everything mightily. She was very nervous about having anyone come in.
Okay, but if you're capable of shooting somebody in the back of the head, you might be capable of getting into the house without even one that's well locked.
You're on the stimulant.
At no time did Susan Berman ever actually tell you the secret info that was going to blow things wide open, did she?
That's right.
Before your interviews with the police, beginning in 2015, you read accounts of issues about Mr. Durst on the internet?
Not much.
Some?
I don't remember doing that. I find it all aversive and ugly. And I didn't like it.
I understand that, but the question is, did you spend some time reading information about Mr. Durst before your police interviews?
No.
So if you told that to the police or Mr. Lewin that you actually had, would that be inaccurate?
I might have seen something in the paper or on the news. I didn't research it. I didn't go about looking for articles on Mr. Durst.
Remember Mr. Lewin instructing you that it would be advisable not to read material about this?
Yes. Well, yeah.
But you certainly had seen the Jinx at least before several of the interviews, correct?
I think I saw it before the last interview, but I don't think I saw it along the way. I saw it, yeah, late in the game.
Now, you were interviewed in March of 2001. Do you remember that?
Not very well.
But do you agree that you were?
Yes?
Okay. And that would have been several months after Susan's death, correct?
Yes?
By the way, before I forget, did you ever visit her at the Benedict Canyon home?
No.
So you don't really know from personal knowledge what kind of locks were on the window, what kind of locks were on the door, things like that, correct?
No. Yes, I do not know.
So Susan is murdered in December, correct?
Yes.
Did the police call you as one of her friends of 40 years within a few days after the murder?
I don't know how many days after the murder they called me, or somebody called me, but they definitely had my name on her phone records. I talked to her on about the 22nd or the 21st or 20th, and they were concerned that about talking to me because they found my name there.
And they came to see you in Portland in March of 2001. Do you remember that?
Yes?
Okay. And during that interview, do you remember telling them that you had known her since she was 12 years old?
Yeah?
And
Yes.
you met while you were in school,
Yes.
correct?
Yes.
And did you remember telling them the recent conversations you had with her revolved around their days at St. Helens Hall? Remember that?
Yeah?
You remember
Yes.
telling them that Miss Berman was writing a book entitled Rich Girl, Poor Girl, and was gathering information regarding her days at school?
Yes.
And you remember telling them that you were a practicing psychologist, and you stated that Susan believed that she would never be able to completely open up to her past pain and losses regarding her parents' death. You remember telling that to the police?
Yes.
And you remember telling them that she was concerned with a husband's suicide and the hell she went through with the relationship with Paul Kaufman and her current financial status.
Yes.
Okay. Morse stated that you know Berman had been broke for a long period of time. Remember that?
Yes.
And Morse estimates that she had sent Berman approximately $1,000 over the last year. Remember that?
Yes.
You also stated that Berman always had some sort of pending deal and always felt that a big payday was just around the corner.
Yes.
You remember saying that you conversed about her recent falling out with Mella, who was her kind of adopted daughter, and that she was devastated by it. Remember that?
Yes.
Remember telling the police that Berman said Mella hated her and resented her for stepping into the place of her birth mother.
Yes.
Okay. Remember telling the police that Berman often discussed Paul Kaufman and felt that Kaufman had sexually abused Mella when she was younger. Remember that?
Yes.
Remember telling the police that Berman often confronted Paul Kaufman about this and was afraid of him because he was aware that she knew this information about him.
I don't recollect saying that, but I believe that if I said it at that time, it would have been true.
Do you remember telling the police that Berman felt because of this incestuous relationship, Mella had some psychiatric problems, and asked Morse if she would help Mella out? Remember that?
Yes.
Okay. Remember telling the police that Berman was in love with a guy named Niall, who was her agent?
Yes.
And you remember telling that Berman wanted to talk about him all the time?
Yes.
Berman had informed her that although Niall had told her he was gay, Berman felt he was really bisexual because of their chemistry together.
Yes.
You kind of tried to tell her that that was kind of a silly notion, didn't you?
I discouraged her from the relationship.
Remember warning her that being involved with someone could cause her to be perhaps, exposed to sexually transmitted diseases.
Yes.
And you told that to the police because you were worried about it.
Yeah.
So all these things you're telling the police were things that were bothering her that she had talked to you about just before she was murdered, right?
No.
Well, you told that to the police. That these are
She
things...
talked about them long before she was murdered.
Okay. But these were important issues that you shared with the police.
Not on that last, I had not talked with her about those things in that last conversation or in the previous year or so before then. It was earlier that I talked to her about those things as they were happening.
You understood that the police were there to investigate her homicide, correct?
Yeah.
And you were trying to share with them things about her life to help them in their investigation, correct?
I answered their questions.
Yes. These were questions they asked because as policemen, that was their job, and you gave truthful answers to their questions.
That's right, but it was not within the last year or so that I was talking about at that point.
Okay, that's fine. But you shared that information.
Yes.
Correct? So that was even farther removed from the time you were being interviewed. Correct? Like a year out. Right?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, many years ago.
Okay.
I mean, Paul Kaufman and Niles and all of those people were historical.
Okay. Morse stated that Berman had told her that someone who was high profile had recently sent her $15,000. Remember telling them that?
I don't remember the amount.
Do you remember it was a large amount?
I don't remember the amount. I just remember that she said that someone, she liked to talk about how connected she was and that someone had sent her some help.
Okay. Would it help you to refresh your recollection, you believe, if you were to look at the police report?
No, I believe that if I said it, it was true at that time, but I don't remember 15 years later.
Okay, but I'm asking you, do you think it would help you if you looked at the police report from 15 years ago to refresh your recollection as to what you told the police?
Yes.
May I approach you?
May.
Gentlemen, I'm showing her the police report of Coulter and Stevens dated March 20th, 2001 on the second page.
No problem.
Okay.
Does that refresh recollection?
A little bit.
Does the amount of $15,000 that you told the police refresh your recollection?
Sure.
Thank you. Do you remember telling the police during this interview that Berman had told you that she had recently been sent $15,000?
To tell you that I remember that conversation would be a lie, but I do believe that if I said it, and I did, that happened.
Do you remember telling the police that Berman had told you the landlady was nuts and neurotic?
Yes,
Okay. That the landlady wanted her out, but Berman was determined to stay?
yes,
Do you remember telling the police the following? Berman was very paranoid about being killed and always was on the lookout for something.
yes.
I'm going to ask to approach again, Your Honor, and ask Ms. Berman to look at the whole report because I have a question. Well, I'll do it this way. Ms. Berman.
I'm
sorry, Ms. Morse, I'm sorry. Ms. Morse, at any time in March of 2001, when the two police officers who came to investigate the homicide of your friend of many, many years, did you ever tell them anything about Susan Berman blowing the lid off a story?
I don't remember that now, but if I said that then, I wouldn't have lied.
Okay, but do you have a recollection of ever telling the police in 2001 about your friend telling you that she was about to blow the lid off a story? Did you tell that to the police?
She referred to this case to this situation several times. And she was obviously sitting on something that she was worried about.
You need to listen to my question. Did you ever tell that to Detective Coulter and Detective Stevens in 2001, 3 months after the homicide?
If it's in that report, I did.
And if it's not in that report, you didn't?
If it's not in that report, the fact is I don't remember it right this minute.
Your Honor, I just offer this as Chestnut to the bill. We are willing to stipulate, if it helps Mr. Chestnut, if he wants stipulation, that this information was not mentioned to Detective Coulter during that interview. If you would like that stipulation, we'll save time and we're happy to stipulate.
Thank you. We'll accept.
Does the court accept this?
Yes, accept the stipulation.
Will you stipulate that at no time during this interview did she ever talk about some person, things in York, who had a missing wife?
I think that's, is now, yeah, so here's what we'll stipulate, that the statement, the information about the missing wife in New York was not mentioned by the witness during her 2001 interview with Detective Coulter.
So
We will stipulate.
Accept the stipulation. Let me ask my colleagues. And is the blowing the lid off thing included in the stipulation?
Yes, because she not mentioned anything, let me get the stipulation so we're clear. We are willing to stipulate that during that 2001 interview, the witness did not mention the situations with the friend from New York and the missing wife. And implicit in that she also did not mention that situation, did not mention the blowing the lid off the situation in the case.
And that she never told the police Susan Berman told her any of those things. She never told the police that Susan Berman said any of those things to her.
during the interview,
I mean, I think I just
you did.
stipulated to what you wanted.
Right, and he just kind of doubled it up a little bit by re-emphasizing the point with this.
But my stipulation covers, correct, Your Honor? The court understands.
Yeah, except the exact word would blow something up.
Okay. Just so I don't remember that after court, the correct words are blow something, what is it?
Blow something wide open.
Blow something wide open. She never told that to the police.
Yes, she never mentioned blowing the case wide open, blowing the situation wide open. She did not mention that incident involving information she had Mr. Bannon wants me to add, nor anything about stealing the beans, or any other vegetables. I think my stipulation covers it, Your Honor. I can't, so it's like I stipulate and then they come back and say.
We're good with it, Your Honor. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, and have you completed your examination? You have to redirect, but we're going to take a break for our reporters. So we'll resume at 3:25. All right, we're back in session. Durst is president of council before represented. Witnesses resume the witness stand. You remain under oath. Can you resume your examination now? Begin your redirect.
Thank you. Ms. Morse, when you were being questioned by Detective Coulter, did you believe it was your role to volunteer things to say, or did you view your role as to answer the questions he was asking?
To ask a question.
At the time that you interviewed with Detective Coulter, had you already put together in your mind when you would testify about the connection potentially between Susan's friend who had the missing wife and her murder?
No.
Ma'am, you also indicated before that Susan told you that she didn't want to tell you because she didn't want to put her life in danger. Do you recall that?
Yes.
And you also previously stated another reason why you believe that Susan did not tell you the information that she had.
Yes.
And what reason is that?
Her loyalty to her friend.
Have you at any point in time said that Susan knew that because of the kind of person she knew you were, that if she had told you, she would have known that you would have forced her to come forward?
She didn't say that, but I think she knew that.
No, so this is what I'm asking. Because understand, Susan did not tell you, I'm not going to tell you this because you'll make me come forward with whatever I tell you. She never said that, correct?
No.
Is that correct?
She never said it.
Ma'am, did Susan, are you the kind of person, ma'am, that if you were aware of criminal conduct, serious criminal conduct, that you would come forward to the police?
Yes.
How well does Susan Berman know you?
Very well. I regret to this day that I didn't push her.
Now, in terms of people you've been close to in your life over a long period of years, outside of family, where does Susan Berman fit into that equation?
She's in my top 3 or 4 friends.
And you've been a psychotherapist for how long?
40 years.
And as a part of being a psychotherapist, is it you listening to people and figuring out why it is that people do and say and act certain ways?
Yes.
And is it trying to help individuals that you are counseling understand these things?
Yes.
Now, so let me ask you, was Susan Berman, did she express to you during the 40 years you knew her, did she have a sense of pride in her family's mafia?
Yes.
Did you have a similar mafia connection in your family?
No.
Between the two of you, ma'am, the way you lived your lives, was one of you more of a rule follower and a little straighter than the other?
Yes.
Who would that be?
Me.
Was Susie aware of the fact that you were the straight rule follower?
Yes.
And were there other contexts in your 40-year relationship? And I'm not asking what they were. Were there other contexts during that time where the fact that you were a rule follower and Susie was less so came up?
Yes.
Now, I want you to assume for a moment that Susie Berman had come to you and she had said that Bob Durst told me that he killed and or was responsible for the disappearance of his wife. I want you to assume that. Do you have a strong opinion as to how you would have responded to Susie providing you that
I
information?
have a very strong opinion.
And what is it, ma'am?
I would have told her that she had to that that's part of why she's so nervous, and that it was bad for her and really morally wrong, and we need to talk about it and get it straightened out right away. She needs to talk.
And given the closeness of the relationship you have with Susan Berman, how confident are you as to whether or not Susie would have known in advance that that would have been your response?
She would have known. She would have expected that that's what I would have done.
And now, if I were to ask you, how certain are you of this opinion you just given?
100%.
Now, in testifying today during cross-examination, Mr. Chesnoff brought up when it was that you related certain facts. Do you recall that?
Yes.
And he asked you why it was that you did not relate certain facts in 2001 when you were questioned. Do you recall that?
Yes.
Ma'am, have you been honest in your testimony today?
Yes.
In your testimony and in your statements that you've given to detectives and myself in this case, how much of an effort have you made to be as truthful and accurate as you can?
100%. I mean, I tried very hard to be truthful.
Your Honor, we've completed the testimony of Robin Morse. I'd like to mark for identification, People 79B. That's a
Yes.
two-page document. It's an exhibit sheet. It details which exhibits in the video are now the new exhibits for trial. There were 5 exhibits put in the video. They're all two-page transcripts. I'd like to mark for identification, People 79C, that was 55A. 79D, that was 56A. 79E, that was 57A. 79F, that was 58A, and 79G, that was 59A.
All right, thank you. This, I understand that the next video will be ready, you're ready to present that tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock?
We'll have live witnesses here at 9 a.m. now.
Ah, very good. So live witnesses at 9 o'clock, so we can break today at this time. So remember, do not converse among yourselves or with anyone else on any subject connected with this case. No tweeting or Facebook or any social media regarding the case. Do not form or express any opinion on the case. We'll see you tomorrow at 9 o'clock.